questions at the end.
Right, and I think Keitan will probably join us as well.
All right, so let's just give people a few minutes. It looks like I'm sure some more people will join in the next 2 minutes or so.
I'm expecting big things here.
I think you're not, I think you're online, so careful what you say to your wife.
Wait, am I unmuted?
No.
We can hear everything you're saying.
Oh, good. So I was gonna get my son's didgeridoo and play it if you start going off topic.
I was going to say, whatever you do, keep it PG.
It'll be nice. It'll be nice, short, and simple. We'll give plenty of time to ask.
It's fine. I have patients starting at 1, so at 5:01, I'm gonna have to go off.
Okay, that's okay. We always aim for that anyway.
You'll have plenty of time to go out, have dinner before you have to go off, so you'll be good.
All right, well, let's get started here. So for those of you who are joining us, I'm sure some more will come. I'm Dr. Tano. I'm helping to moderate. Today we have a wonderful talk from Dr. Rahul Patel, who you can see on your who's one of our internists at the practice, one of our partners. Dr. Berger is going to help us answer some questions at the end because he is also involved with research at Rockville. And then Juliana DeVito is one of the clinical researchers from Meridian. So today's talk is on clinical research at our office. Some of you guys might know that we partnered with Meridian to help us, or I guess it's a symbiotic relationship. We're both helping each other. So we are participating in a lot of active studies, and hopefully they're going to talk about all the details of that. But some of you may have been contacted to participate in a flu shot study or a pneumonia study or potentially even a new COVID vaccine study. So hopefully they'll touch on that. And then just a quick update for next week. I think the email for webinars got a little delayed this week. That's my fault. So if you don't get it today or if you haven't gotten it yet, that's okay. It's over the weekend. Monday, Dr. Moskowitz, who's our clinical psychologist, is going to give a talk on some mindful meditation in the real world. And so she asks everyone who participates to have a small piece of food, like she says, like a raisin or a piece of chocolate, something small. So that should be good. Wednesday, Dr. Council is going to talk about some preventative care. And on next Friday, Dr. Berger, who's on the call, but you can't see him, is going to do a talk on humor in medicine. And for anyone who knows Dr. Berger, he can usually put a smile on your face, even if you're trying to be moody on a Monday, he'll come in and make you laugh. So it looks like we have about 30 people who have joined us. Some more probably will join through the talk, but I'll go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Patel and Juliana. And then, oh, one last thing for participants, if you want to ask questions either throughout or at the end, just submit them to that QA section, and we can ask our panelists some interesting clinical questions. All right, guys, go ahead.
All right, so many of you may know me. I'm Dr. Rahul Patel. I'm an internist here, and I don't help run, but I help coordinate clinical research at our practice. And with me today will be Juliana DeVito. She's the clinical site coordinator for Meridian. And so we just wanted to give you guys an idea of, what kind of research we do here, who Meridian is, and how, if you guys are interested, you can participate. So today we're going to talk about research at our practice. So we want to familiarize you guys with clinical research process, the different types of phases of the clinical trials and the different types of trials, meet some of the investigators at our practice and understand sort of what Meridian's role is in our practice. And then we'll talk about some of the current studies we have, some of the studies we did in the past, as well as some of the risks and benefits of being a research participant. And then we'll also talk about some of our studies that are upcoming for it. Okay, so what is clinical research? Juliana DeVito, who is the site manager for Meridian, is just going to talk about this. Assuming that she has no problems.
Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. How are you?
Okay, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. So my name is Juliana. I'm going to be talking about clinical research. So some of you might be familiar with it. It's basically the branch of healthcare science that helps determine the safety and efficacy of medications, medical devices, treatment therapies, and diagnostics. And at our site, we started about 2 years ago. I've been here since about November 2018, and the site's been growing, so we're happy to see that. Now more than ever, clinical research is important to bring about new treatments in a world where we might not have the answers to everything. And in order to make sure everything is regulated, the FDA oversees everything, and as well as ethics boards. So they're the key to keeping these clinical trials ethically sound and safe for anyone who wants to participate. The choice to participate is completely up to you. If you're unsure about if you're a good candidate for a research study, you can talk to your doctor, or you can always give us a call. We're always happy to discuss, and there's many different clinical trials and clinical research opportunities that we offer here at Rockville Internal Medicine Group that might interest you, whether you would like to be part of a new drug trial or a new vaccine trial, or if you'd like to be part of more of an interview type of research study. So it's very exciting, and the future of our medicine and healthcare depends on clinical research. So I'm always excited to talk about clinical research. We put a little bit of a humorous meme in here to kind of touch on the fact that clinical research can save lives. If you think about the last drug that you took, whether it be Advil or a heart medication for blood pressure, all of these medications at one point have gone through the clinical trial process for safety and efficacy, and they wouldn't be available if it weren't for our research participants. So we're always very thankful for those who want to participate.
So with Rockville Internal Medicine and Meridian, we both work symbiotically, as Dr. Cano mentioned before. And we do all the trials, the various trials, right from our office. So you don't really have to go anywhere else. And there are currently 8 principal investigators at Rockville Internal Medicine Group. And as time progresses, you're going to see more and more. And so hopefully that's a good thing. Let's just meet some of the investigators. Here's Dr. Berger, who does pulmonary and internal medicine. There's Dr. Ketan, who's an internist at our practice, as well as myself. I'm I do internal medicine. There's Dr. Alan Pollack, who does pulmonary and internal medicine as well, and Dr. Asefa McConnon, who does sleep as well as pulmonology here. And then Dr. Layli Liu, who's an internist. And we have our two gastroenterologists, Dr. Grace Wu and Dr. Belen Tesfaye. So just
so you know who Meridian is, I'm just going to go over who we are as a company. So Meridian was founded in 1999. We've been doing research for about 20 years, and it was founded in Omaha, Nebraska. Currently, there are 21 different locations across the United States, and we work with over 50 physicians to run our research trials. So Meridian is basically the company who provides the research staff, myself, and I have 3 other coordinators who work here on site, and a nurse practitioner who serves as a sub-investigator who's dedicated to the clinical side of our trials. So we all work in the office, and we are trained in running these clinical trials through Meridian, and we work with their central office to provide quality assurance checks and kind of to stay organized. And then some of our sites in Meridian are standalone, so just a research site, but this one is embedded inside Rockville Internal Medicine Group so that you can participate in research while you're in the office, kind of adding to the one-stop shop quality of Rockville Internal Medicine Group that's very appealing. There's many specialties that you could see here, and you can also participate in research. So it's just another service that we have here. We specialize in vaccine trials. So Meridian has been doing vaccine trials for a long time. In 2015, we supported an Ebola vaccine during an outbreak. And in the past year, we've worked on a Zika virus vaccine, anthrax vaccine, a new pneumonia vaccine, and a new flu vaccine. So we're very focused in vaccines, but we also have studies in gastroenterology and in metabolic, so diabetes, and we also do blood collection studies for biomarker research. And in addition to that, we also have a site at the Neurology Center that specializes in neurology studies. So people with Parkinson's or migraines can be part of those studies right across the hall.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you some background, Meridian is a clinical research organization, and there are a bunch of them out there. And we've been approached by various ones in the past, none that we really were that keen on, and until we went to Meridian. The Neurology Center across the hall, which probably many of you know, it's right across the hall from us, and they've been partnered with Meridian prior to us, and they've been very happy with their partnership. I had an opportunity to talk to some of the doctors at other sites out of state, and they were very happy with Meridian. And Meridian just has a very good track record of doing research. And so we've been really pleased for working with them. So what types of studies are offered? Well, there are blood collection studies. You basically just donate your blood for research purposes. They're usually one-time blood donation. And the samples can be used to look for biomarkers, or helps with targeted drug therapy development. And like I said, these are just one-time studies, and we'll go through what some of the ones we have at our site at a later on in the presentation. And we also have observational or interview studies. It helps provide feedback on experiences with various diseases, medical products, and medications from a patient's perspective. And it's designed to try to improve on current therapies. And of course, we have the interventional studies, which involve a new drug or a device that's being tested for safety and efficacy. And so I'm sure nowadays, all of you hear a lot about the different phases of clinical trials on TV and on the news. So we'll just sort of briefly go through them. So there's preclinical research. This is where human cell cultures and animal models are used to develop new treatment. If the data looks promising and the device or the medication being tested is safe, then it sort of moves on to clinical trials.
Sorry, can I just interrupt for a moment? Juliana, could you put your mic on mute while, oh, you are muted. I don't know, there's some feedback coming from somewhere. If everyone could just check that they're muted, that'd be great. Okay, sorry, Dr. Patel.
No worries. So phase 1 trials typically involve healthy volunteers. Usually involves a small group of people. So typically there are 100 people that are involved in these studies. And the study is designed just to look to see how a drug behaves in the body. You know, how it's absorbed, how it's metabolized, and how it's excreted. It also looks for side effects of the medication at various escalating doses, and also how the medication should be given, whether it's IV or PO form. And once the medication or device makes it through phase 1, then they'll move on to phase 2 trials. This phase is designed to determine if the medication or device being tested is safe and effective. This typically involves hundreds to thousands of participants. I'm sorry, it just involves hundreds of participants for it. These are randomized trials. So participants are grouped into typically 2 groups. One is the treatment group, and then the other is the control group. So they'll either get a placebo or the standard of treatment. And they're blinded studies. So which that means is that, you know, neither investigators nor the participants know which treatment group that they're in. The data collected during this phase, you know, allows us to design the phase 3 group trials. And so phase 3 are large-scale studies. They have hundreds to thousands of participants. It's designed to further test a treatment that showed positive results in phase 2. It includes a much more diverse group of people. These are also typically randomized trials for it, and they're blinded. And it gives us a much better understanding of the new drug or device and its potential benefits and side effects. And this phase can take up to 2 years, depending on what's being tested. And so if this phase shows benefits, then the medication can be given to the FDA to try to get approval for it. Once the medication is already used, then they have phase 4. These are post-marketing surveillance trials. It's designed to continue to look at the safety of the drug once it's gone to the market. It can help determine the long-term efficacy and of a drug or a device on patients' quality of life. It typically will compare, you know, the new treatment with the treatments that are already out there. They'll look to see if it's cost-effective. And the FDA continues to monitor these medications. So at any time, you know, if there's any harm shown, they can take it off the market or they can put restrictions on how it's used for it. And so Juliana will now talk about what it's like to be a participant in clinical trials.
All right, so if you're wondering what it's like to be part of one of our trials, I'm just going to go over a general overview. Each study is different, so each person's experience will be different, but this is generally how it goes. So you hear about an upcoming study from your doctor while you're at the office, or a member of our research team might reach out to you, and you know, at that time you can decide if you'd like to participate or even just hear more about the study. And if you don't want to be participating in the study, you can just let them know. And if you are interested, then you go through a process on the phone to do a little pre-screening. So short question and answer about you, just to see if you would be a good candidate before you actually come into the office. And if you are a good candidate and you are interested, then you can schedule an appointment with the research staff to come in for the first visit, which is also typically called the screening visit. So next slide. So once you come into the office, before anything, there's a process of informed consent. So, and we can always send you the informed consent beforehand if you would like to review with your family or your doctor, or just have some more time at home to review it. But once you come in the office, no matter what, we'll still review the informed consent with you to make sure that you understand all of the requirements that the study would have, whether it be, you know, maybe using an electronic diary to keep track of, you know, different symptoms, or if you know, if there are certain risks or benefits, there might be some EKG screenings or blood draws. So that's the part where we talk about everything that's going to happen in the trial to make sure that you're informed and that you're comfortable with moving forward. So if you are comfortable, then we sign the informed consent and you get a copy, and that consent can be withdrawn at any time. So starting the screening visit, everyone is different. So typically for the interventional trials that Dr. Patel mentioned, where there's a new medication or a device being studied, there's different assessments that we would do at the first visit. So maybe a blood draw, vital signs, talk about your medical history to see if it's safe for you to be in the trial. Some of the studies that we talked about, so the blood draw study would just be one visit. So it's not really a screening visit. It would just be one visit where we talk about your medical history, make sure you qualify, and then go on with the blood draw. And then the interview studies sometimes are just one visit. So you would come in and complete the interview and then go on with your day. And if you qualify to move forward for one of the investigational trials that might have more frequent visits or multiple visits over a period of time, then you are randomized into a treatment arm. So that would be where in the randomized trials where there's different arms and it's blinded, you're assigned to a different treatment group, and then we start the study. And then throughout the study, the investigator and the clinical research staff, they closely monitor your health. So we're constantly collecting data and checking in to see if you're okay, depending on the study. So for example, some studies might have one visit on the first day, and then a phone call on the 3-month mark, and then another visit at the 6-month mark. So that's kind of an example of how we monitor your health through the trial. And all of this data goes together to support the drug when they eventually want to apply for FDA approval. And then for each visit, depending on the studies, you may be eligible to receive a stipend for your time and travel and participating in the study.
So what are the potential risks of being in the study? The new treatment may have potential risk of causing harm that we don't know about. It may not be better than the treatment that's already out there for it. And also remember, you're randomized, so you may not actually receive the treatment medication during the study. It can also be a little inconvenient. There are follow-up appointments, which can take time. And so the most important part, is the informed consent part, which gives you plenty of time to ask questions, to know what's expected of you for it. What are the potential benefits of being in a trial? You have access to a new medication that's not available yet. You also get closely followed, so you get more frequent medical care and diagnostic testing with doctors who specialize in the condition that you're being followed for. You get compensated for your time and travel. Most importantly, you help the future of medicine. You can help in the development of treatment for various conditions that may not have an effective treatment. And you don't need any insurance to participate in these studies. So it's not a cost to you in that respect. What protects you as a patient? Congress has passed many laws to protect participants, and every clinical investigator oversees the trial to make sure that participants are safe and that the protocol is closely followed for it. There's also an IRB, which is an institutional review board. It's basically an ethics board that reviews and approves every clinical study. Doctors, the review board is made up of doctors, scientists, and lay people. And their main purpose is just to make sure that all participants are safe. Along with the IRB, many trials are monitored by a data and safety monitoring committee. If they see no benefit from medication or they see harm, they can stop the trial. And before any trial, as Juliana discussed, we get an informed consent. And during this process, you have plenty of time to ask questions. We explain the risks and benefits of the treatment, also alternative treatments that are already available, what the time commitment for you would be to participate in the study for it. And remember, at any time, you can leave the study. There's no questions asked, so. And we're just going to talk about some of the studies that we have available right now. So currently we have a heart failure, which is basically an interview study. It's just a phone interview. You don't have to come in for this. And so if you have the diagnosis of heart failure and you'd be interested in doing it, there'll be a number at the end that you can call to participate in the trial. So I think Juliana's picture is blocking the number at the right-hand corner. So we also have the blood collection studies that Juliana talked about. Currently we're looking for anyone with chronic kidney disease, anyone who has lupus, and currently, again, even most of our providers don't know, currently we are also looking for anyone who's had COVID-19 and they cleared it. And so we're interested in those. So, and you don't have to be a patient at our practice to participate in any of these studies. Of course, if you or someone you know would be interested, give us a call. And these blood collection studies, remember, are typically just a one-time blood donation study. We also have a diabetic gastroparesis study. Currently, there's no approved treatment for diabetic gastroparesis. And so this is an interventional study. We also have an erosive gastritis study to evaluate a new treatment with the standard treatment, as well as an H. pylori study to evaluate a new treatment with the standard treatment. Both the erosive esophagitis and H. pylori are phase 3 studies, and they're testing, they're comparing a medication to the standard treatment of a medicine that's already been approved in another country, of course. And in some of the past studies that we did a pneumonia study for a pneumonia vaccine. Dr. Alan Pollack was the principal investigator. We had about 150 participants in that study at our site. And the study basically compared the new pneumonia vaccine that we were testing out against the standard pneumonia vaccine. And it was a phase 3 trial that met all of its endpoints. And so that will go to the FDA for a potential approval. We also in the past did a flu study. We did a phase 2 flu study, which was successful and went on to phase 3. We did that at our site as well. And Dr. Ira Berger was the principal investigator in both of those phases. And that tested out a new quadrivalent flu vaccine for adults 65 and older against the current quadrivalent flu vaccine. That also met all of its endpoints. And so that will also go to the FDA for potential approval for it. In some of the past that we did an HIV self-test. It was testing a device so that you can do your own HIV test. The idea is, if it was successful, that can potentially be available over the counter in the United States. We also did a few interview studies for prescribed medications that they wanted to make available for over-the-counter use. And the study was designed to see if patients can make their own safe decisions on its use for it. And so that was for a potential birth control study or a cholesterol study. Future studies, we also would be testing out a home flu, or a device, I should say. We actually did this during the past flu season, where patients would come in and they would do their own test using the device. The idea was to see if patients are capable of using the device, and if so, that can potentially be available over the counter in the future as well. Meridian currently is doing COVID-19 studies at some of its sites, and we anticipate on participating in the later phases of the COVID-19 vaccine trials at our site for it. So you might get contacted by Meridian regarding your potential interest in the trial. These trials, if they come, typically the enrollment period is very short. So, we would love to have anyone who might be interested that we can contact if and when we get the trial for it. And then these are some of our patient reviews. There'll be a link at the end that'll tell you, what patients thought who participated in the study. at our site. So these are all patients, our participants at our site for it. So if you or anyone you know is interested, remember, contact Meridian, and you do not have to be a patient at our practice to be involved in our study. And that's it. Any questions?
Yes, we have questions coming in. Thank you. That was wonderful. I did not know about that home flu study, so that's interesting for sure. Question here about, do you have any trouble getting volunteers, or does it depend on the type of study?
So it does depend on the type of, for vaccine trials, we usually don't have any trouble getting volunteers, for those trials for it. The flu home kit, I thought that was a great, study. We did it during the flu season that started. I thought there would be no problems getting patients. The way it was designed is when patients came in, typically to our walk-in clinic, we asked them if they'd be interested in testing out, the self-flu test kit. Obviously, we would also do a standard of care in terms of, diagnosing them with our own flu kit. It's stuff that you don't think about. When patients don't feel well, they're sick, they just want to go home and rest. They're not interested sometimes in doing a study. So that was the problem with that study. Otherwise, I thought that was a great study. It's something that if participants do, it turns out well, then potentially in the future, people can just go to a local pharmacy, do the kit, and they'll know if they have the flu or not. So yeah, those are types of studies. And any study where they might potentially taking them off of medications that they may already feel well on, it's always difficult. And so we get approached by a lot of different studies, like, do we want to participate in this study versus that study? And what we usually ask ourselves is, one is, would we do this study ourselves, for it? Would we put our family into this study? So those are two important questions for me, like when someone approaches me with a study for it. And then we try to gauge, do we have this patient population to begin with, for it? And if we do, do we feel our patients would like to participate in this? And so it's a bunch of questions we sort of ask ourselves before we, decide that we want to take on a study. And you'd be surprised how many studies we just say no to because of those reasons for it.
Okay, and then a question here about stipends. How much is a stipend usually, and how do you determine, how much a patient is compensated for a certain type of study?
So most stipends, they depend on the study, obviously, and it depends. They try to estimate what's the time commitment to the study for it. It's not designed to be high enough in a sense to bribe a patient, so it has to be something that compensates someone for their time, but not kind of put them in a position where, they would do it for the stipend for it. And so it varies from study to study for it. Juliana might have more input on this stipend.
Yeah, I mean, the stipends range from anywhere from, $50 for some of our blood collection studies, all the way up to, $150 for some of our interventional studies for visits that, require EKGs and blood draws and maybe more of your time. But as Dr. Patel said, there's a fine balance that we consider between, what is, worth your time, and we'll bring patients into the study so that we can move forward with the research, but also not make it in a way that people are just doing it for the stipend.
Yeah, and then also just one thing, because I know we always talk about this, from your doctor's perspective at Rockville Internal Medicine, there's no favoritism that happens for patients that are in a study or not in a study. Sometimes I don't even really realize they're in a study. So it's not like we hold it against you if you decline to be in a study.
No, it's definitely up to the patient, and we want the patients to want to participate and feel comfortable joining the study. And if you don't want to participate, we don't take it any type of way, and your doctors most of the time wouldn't even know. But yeah, no hard feelings. That the choice is always yours, and we always respect that.
Yeah, one is that is true. We don't know if a patient decides to do a study or not, unless they came to a visit and they happen to mention it, for it. And we don't, it's totally up to you guys. There's no pressure, and like I said, the decision's totally yours. My patients want to participate and I don't think they're a good candidate, or I don't think it might be a safe trial for them, I'll tell them, for it. So.
Here's a patient said that they had participated in the pneumococcal vaccine clinical trial, and will I ever know if I got the drug or the placebo vaccine?
So for the pneumonia vaccine study, there was one group with the 2 standard of care vaccines, and then the other group with the new vaccine and a placebo. So everyone did receive a pneumonia vaccine, but as the press release was just released, I think in March, I heard back from the sponsor that they will be releasing those results later in the year, closer to the end of summer. So there is a way for us to find out for that study. I did confirm that with the sponsor for that, Pfizer. So when that information is available is when you can reach out to us. We don't know for sure because we have to wait until all of the data is compiled and submitted. And the last part of that trial kind of took a little bit longer to enroll. So there was sort of a delay there. But to answer your question, yes, you will eventually be able to find out if you got the new vaccine or the 2 old standard vaccines.
That's the case with most clinical trials, that at some point they do get unblinded.
So everyone feel free to answer questions. We definitely have time for questions today. Next, there's a few questions here that I think all pertain to the COVID vaccine study. So let's just read them out, and then maybe Juliana could just talk about that study. So the specific questions that have come in for COVID-19, would you provide a blood test to see if the patient has been exposed to COVID-19? And if so, that person could join the study. Many people who may have had it, myself included, did not get a test at that time, so can't be sure. That's one question. And then another question, I haven't been tested, but same idea. I haven't been tested, but I strongly suspect I may have had COVID-19 in February with relatively mild symptoms. If I were to test positive now for antibodies, would I be appropriate to include in this study? So if Juliana, I think that's definitely something that everyone is interested in hearing more about.
Yeah, so there's only so much I can say about the COVID-19 vaccine studies. So those upcoming studies, as far as the assessments that will be done in the beginning, it really will depend on the protocol. We're not sure if the antibody testing will be performed as part of the trial procedures because we don't know what those are at this point. But for the second question, it seems more geared towards the blood collection study for recovered patients. So if you are recovered from COVID and you wanted to be part of that blood work study, we would need a positive result documented that they were tested.
Yes, I think the second question was more, what if they happen to already have been exposed, even though they don't know that, and they have antibodies, would they be excluded, from participating in a potential future COVID-19 vaccine trial? The short answer is, like, a lot of these studies are ongoing. And so what the protocol will be, for the next phase of the study is going to be dependent on what the findings are in the current. So we have no idea what the exclusion criteria will be, what the inclusion criteria will be until it leaves this phase and it moves on to the next phase. And so typically we don't know, we don't have that information. But once we do have the study, then we can give you that information. Are you someone that has to be excluded because you had positive antibodies in the past versus not? That's right. Hopefully that answered.
Yeah, I would say if you have any interest at all in joining one of the COVID-19 vaccine studies, just to call our call center and just get your name on the list. And then when we do have that information, like Dr. Patel said, we would call everyone for a phone screening for basic inclusion exclusion criteria.
Yeah. And then, so similar sort of vein of that is how would patients be notified about a new study? So the patient is asking, will RIMG contact patients for volunteers when a new study is beginning, or how do we go about and contact Meridian?
So anyone can go to our website, mcrmed.com, and sign up for more information, and then you would be directed to our call center, and they would kind of gauge your interest as to what type of studies you might be interested in, and then put you on that future call list for when we do get new studies. But all of our studies are listed on clinicaltrials.gov, and they should be listed on our website as well. But if you ever have any questions about what's available, you can always call in the office. We have an office phone number too. The extension is 5004. So if you call the regular RMG office number and put in extension 5004, you'll get the research department. And then also sometimes when we get new studies, we'll send out an email blast, especially for the healthy volunteer studies that most everyone will qualify for. You might have received some email blasts in the past about our studies, but that's another way we spread the word. We also have some advertisements on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, so if you want to go and follow our Facebook page, Meridian Clinical Research Rockville site, that's a good way to keep up to date with our new studies as well.
I'd like to just add something. Rockville Internal Medicine started doing clinical research probably well over 15 years ago. And for probably about 8 to 9 years, we did our research in-house on our own, had our own research coordinator, and had to do all the paperwork ourselves. At a certain point, it became unbearable, the amount of paperwork, and we were having trouble finding studies we liked. We therefore stopped doing clinical research for a period of years. We are an ideal site for clinical research because we have such a large patient population, an educated patient population, and basically what studies want is patients that have the criteria they're looking for, but they want reliable patients that'll come back for follow-up and finish the study. We get on average probably 20 to 25 proposals for clinical research studies for every 3 or 4 that we ask for information further about. Most of the studies we're asked about, would you be interested in participating? We say no, because it's something that either wouldn't benefit our patients, we don't think we'd have the patients for, or we don't like the study, or don't think it would be safe for our study. Of the 3 or 4 we look at, probably one of those 3 or 4 will ask for, we'll say we're interested in, and then we'll meet with the sponsors and decide if we're further interested when we get all the material. One of the nice things about clinical research is it leads to real world changes. RIMG participated in the initial trials that led to the introduction of the high-dose flu vaccine. This was many years ago before Meridian. The flu study that from Novavax was a direct comparison of the high-dose flu vaccine in people over 65 to a new and what they thought was better vaccine, and the clinical study showed it was 50% more effective. And I expect within the next 1 to 2 years, it to replace the standard high-dose flu vaccine as the standard flu study. The people in the pneumonia study got either 2 standard pneumonia shots or they got a new combined, essentially equivalent of the 2 shots in 1 shot. Either way, they got their full complement of pneumonia shots, but also that looks promising. So our goal here is to find studies, like Dr. Patel said, that are interesting, that are useful, that we would allow our family to participate in. As clinical investigators, our #1 priority is to protect patient safety. And that's at any point during any study, if there's ever a concern about patient safety, they're immediately taken off the study and anything's done as needed. Fortunately, that almost never comes up, but it is something we are very cognizant of.
All right, Dr. Bloom for president one day. It looks like there's only one last question. So, so the patient asked, are you still accepting people for the Parkinson's trial? And then what phase is that trial in?
So that would probably be a question for the neurology center. We don't have that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the Parkinson's trial, it actually, the one that we just had, it was right before COVID, and it did stop because of COVID. So right now it is not actively seeking participants. And I actually heard, so it was for a new watch to measure the effectiveness of the medications, so for your doctor to be able to see the effectiveness of your medication. So I think with the data that they collected before the COVID study, they closed the study and are applying directly for FDA approval. But we are constantly getting new studies in for neurology as well. So if you're interested, you can also call the call center and have your name put on a list for the next Parkinson's study that we do.
And for any of the studies that's being run by Meridian, you can call this number, whether it's at the neurology center or other test sites.
Yeah, and then also just one thing on our practice website, Rockville Internal Medicine's website, there's also the link to the Meridian website. So if you are on a phone and you're not looking at your computer and you can't see this link up on the screen, that's another easy way to find it later. All right, so one last question did come in. Over the past 10 years or so, how often did a vaccine clinical test yield results requiring discontinuation for the study?
I don't have the answer to that question.
I don't think I would be able to provide an answer for that.
I can,
That
I
know
can
of.
tell you,
Dr.
Leon,
Dr. Berger, you say something? Oh, you're muted, Dr. Berger.
am I unmuted now?
Unmuted, yes.
I can tell you, I've been involved in 3 separate flu trials, and in the 3 separate flu trials, we have never had an occasion to unblind anyone. I was a sub-investigator in the pneumonia study, and I do not remember any patients that need to be unblinded. It's an extremely rare occurrence that you would need to unblind someone in the study, and I can't think of one in the last 15 years that we've actually, where it's come up.
A lot of the safety data and stuff on a lot of these medications were done really earlier on in the trials. And so as it moves up to different phases, you know, we tend to see less issues with any medication or vaccine.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for the questions on clinical research at Rockville Internal Medicine. Again, the Meridian website is up there. Their link is up there. You can also ask any of your doctors and we can refer you to them. They are physically in our office, which is nice. So if you want to participate in a study, I usually just walk patients over to their office and just say, hey, you know, this patient's interested. Can you tell them more information? And then Juliana, are you guys there full time? Are you guys there 40 hours a week?
Yes, we're
So
here.
they're there all the time, anytime. So you can always ask questions. But thanks for listening. Just to give a little plug on Monday, Dr. Moskowitz is our clinical psychologist. She's going to talk about some meaningful mindfulness in real world applications. So not just, you know, do yoga for 30 minutes, but a little bit more how to stop and in your day do a few minutes of some mindfulness. Wednesday, Dr. Christina Council, who's one of our newer doctors, is going to talk about preventative health care. So pap smears, mammograms, prostate exams, all these kinds of things she's going to go through. And then next Friday, Dr. Berger, who was on this call, is going to do a lecture on humor in medicine. So definitely don't miss that one. It should be good. He wanted me to remind you guys that humor is the best medicine. So hopefully it's a good lunchtime talk next week. But thank you very much to Dr. Patel for giving this lecture, and Liana as well. Thank you to all the hard work you did on your slides. Those were some excellent visual props for sure. And then I guess unless you guys have anything else left to say, I'll tell everyone just to have a nice weekend.
And thanks for having us.
Thank you for participating.
All right, bye guys. Thank you.
Good job, Rahul. Good job.